This lecture is about genome sequencing. There are a lot of companies out there that offer to sequence your genome being your complete genetic information. Now, they don't sequence every bit of your DNA. They sequence sections that are known to have genes, and they don't sequence the areas that are not known to have genes that are involved in things like maintaining the structure of your chromosomes or regulation of which of your genes are active and which ones are inactive. And of course, like everything else, there's a lot of quality variance between companies. If you get your genome sequenced and it comes back and it says, oh, you have this gene that means you're going to get Parkinson's disease. First off, don't panic. They could be wrong. Talk to your doctor and get a higher quality genome sequence. So what can sequencing your genome tell you? Well, there's a good bit that you can learn from your sequence. You can learn about risk factors for disease. So these companies look for common oncogene mutations, common diseases that are relatively simple genetically, like Parkinson's disease, cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, Tay-Sachs. They also look for recessive alleles, like sickle cell anemia, Tay-Sachs, and cystic fibrosis, that could result in a disease in your offspring, especially if your partner has the recessive allele. Now, there's a lot of hope that in the future, we're going to be able to get more information out of genome sequencing. There's a lot of work looking at alleles that affect the way your body responds to certain medications. So, for example, it's very difficult to figure out which antidepressants will work for which people. Most people have to try multiple antidepressants until they find one that works for them. Some people are more likely to have certain side effects from medication, or they might break down medications faster than other people. So there's a lot of hope that this personalized medicine can help pick the right drugs for you to take. What can't it say? Well, there's a lot that your genetic sequence cannot say. While your genetic sequence might give you unexpected insights into where your ancestors came from, such as this fraction of my DNA that came from the Nigeria region of West Africa. Okay, that's not really surprising considering how long my ancestors have been in the US. Most people who have long ancestry in the US are going to have some West African ancestry. But your genetic ancestry is not the same as your cultural ancestry. You do not carry all of the alleles of all of your ancestors. You only get half of your DNA from each parent. My West African ancestry is all on one chromosome. If I had kids and did not pass that chromosome on to them, but passed my other chromosome on to them, that ancestry would not show up in them. Your genome may suggest you are 60% Italian, but if you look at where your ancestors come from, you might only be genetically 25% Italian. That is an important thing to keep in mind when you do these. Your genetic ancestry is not the same as your cultural ancestry. And for most people, your genes are not your fate. There are some alleles that are going to indicate a disease state in the future, but most health conditions in humans are multifactorial. There are multiple genes involved. There's environment involved. So you can have alleles that show an increased risk of cancer. That does not mean you will get cancer. You may not have any alleles that show an increased risk of cancer, and you could still get cancer. Remember, cancer takes multiple genetic mutations, and the environment plays a significant role in that. So your genes can play a role, but your actions matter too. You can increase your athletic skills by practice, but really most people who go on to be to the Olympics or play in the majors have certain alleles that increase their athletic abilities, specifically involving muscles. You may be at risk for cancer or heart disease, but eating a vegetable-based diet and exercising reduces this risk. So we can also sequence populations. When we look at the alleles, the genetic variation among a large number of people, that can tell us a lot about the ancient history of our species. It can give us clues about human migratory patterns. It can also give us clues about our ancestors' interactions with other hominin species. Hominin refers to any species that is very closely related to humans. It includes modern humans. Over here, H. sapiens, that's us. It includes our ancestors. And it includes extinct species like Neanderthal and the group known as the Denisovans. You can see from this image that we have an awful lot of fossil evidence for hominids that are now extinct. We don't know which ones specifically were our ancestors. The hominin group usually also includes the chimpanzees and the bonobos. Bonobos are a not well-known type of chimpanzee. Including chimps and bonobos in the hominin group is an unpopular opinion. And people who don't study genomes or evolution or the fossil record often exclude the chimps and bonobos from the hominid group. Humans and chimpanzees share between 94 and 99% of our genome. And the variability, most of the variability, occurs in areas that are not part of the genes. So, what can genome sequencing of populations say about our ancestry? Well, we know that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals lived in Europe at the same time. And people with European ancestry generally have sequences that are also found in Neanderthal. These sequences are not found in African or Asian peoples. This indicates interbreeding between the human ancestors and the Neanderthals. Yes, that's right, our ancestors and Neanderthals. The picture of Neanderthal you probably have in your mind is probably inaccurate when we look at reconstructions from the skulls of Neanderthals. They could probably walk down the street. You're going the other way, and you would go, that guy's kind of ugly, if you notice them at all. People to areas of Southeast Asia, Australia, and the islands between those two areas have sequences that are found in a different group of hominids called the Denisovans, which are not indicated on this graphic because they haven't been sequenced until, I think they were sequenced last year. So this is a slightly older graphic. Okay, so that is what you can learn from your personal genome, as well as what we can learn by sequencing genomes of a population.